Hi there, St Francis Church. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Gemma and I work for a local youth work organisation called Youthscape. Today is Youth Work Sunday and it's an opportunity for us to celebrate with churches all over the country, to celebrate youth work and to celebrate young people. I'm really excited that I get to celebrate with you today because St Francis is the church that I grew up in. It's the church in which I was a young person. And I really feel it's the church in which the foundations of my faith were built. So it's really exciting for me to be able to share with you today. I'm going to be speaking from Jeremiah 29 verses 4 to 14. And I just really pray that God speaks to you through my words and inputs something in your heart. So it was my birthday about a month ago, and I don't know if you do this too, but in the weeks running up to it, I thought it would be a really good idea to put together a list of all the different things that I wanted so that my family had something to choose from when they were buying me gifts. And so I put loads of effort into this list. I researched on the internet, I put the links in of the things that I wanted. I did all this stuff and put loads of work into it. And then I posted it in my family WhatsApp chat. And I expected good things. I had real hope that because I've written a list, I would get the things I wanted. There were 6 people in my family apart from me. And so I thought those were pretty good odds that I would get something really decent from them. So in the days, weeks running up to my birthday, I felt pretty confident that I was going to get what I wanted. I'd even been dropping lots of little hints in the days before, I don't know if you do that too, about which specific gifts I wanted the most. So I was feeling pretty good. I was thinking I'm going to get exactly what I want. Now, there is no way that I'm dissing my family. I'm not saying that they didn't get me good gifts. They absolutely did. They got me some lovely gifts. I am so happy with what they got me. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I didn't get some of the gifts on the list that I wanted. And I got some gifts that weren't on the list. And so I was a little bit surprised, maybe even a little bit disappointed. I basically hoped it was all going to be okay, that I was going to get everything I wanted just because I'd written a list. I'd put all my hope in that list, but realistically, there was no substance in that. There was no guarantee that I was going to get what I wanted just because I'd written a list. Basically, I was in a little bit of denial about the situation. Hope is a special word to me because it is my niece's name and she's a really important person in my life. We get on really well and I absolutely love hanging out with her. And because I'm a Christian, it makes that name even more special. Hope in God, or a holy hope as I'm going to call it today, is very different to a worldly or a false hope. False hope is a belief that things are all going to be okay or the way I want them to just because I've written a list. It's basically a belief that that things are all going to be good, that I don't have to worry about everything. It's just a denial about the reality of the difficulties of life, the difficulties of the situation. And the truth is that that kind of hope is not built on anything concrete. It's not built on anything that has any substance. It's very abstract and it's just away in the air somewhere. But holy hope is way more than that. It's a belief that's based upon God, based upon who He is. It's based upon the fact that He is good, that He loves me and that He wants what's best for me and that He is with me no matter what the situation may be. That's a hope that's based on something concrete. That's a hope that's based on something that cannot be shaken. So today's reading from Jeremiah 29 tells us about a time when the Israelites were in an incredibly hopeless situation. So God had allowed His people to be exiled to Babylon, and that was a really rubbish situation for them because they were basically being oppressed by the people there. Instead of being able to roam around freely in the land that God had given them, instead of winning battles like they were used to, they were now in slavery and they were just not in a great place. And so in chapter 28, the prophet Hananiah, he fills them with hope by telling them that God has promised that He will remove them from their slavery within 2 years. Now, I know if that was me, if I'd been there, I would have absolutely grabbed on to the hope of that prophecy. I would have been like, yes, I believe that. I put my hope in that because I would have wanted to get out of that situation as soon as possible. But in chapter 29, Jeremiah condemns Hananiah for this prophecy, and he turns around and he tells the Israelites that actually they'll be in Babylon for 70 years before God allows them to be released and allows them to return to the land that he's given them. Now, I don't know about you, but if it was me, I would have been so disappointed. It would have felt like a huge blow for the Israelites to hear, and it maybe might have even zapped any hope that they had in God already. But the reality and the point that Jeremiah is making is that the hope that Hananiah had given them was false. It wasn't a holy hope, it was a false hope. It was based on wishful thinking. It was based on a denial of the situation. It wasn't based on God's words. It wasn't based on his truth. Even though what Hananiah had presented as facts was not holy hope, it was false. So Jeremiah 29 verse 11 is probably one of the most quoted verses in the Bible. We love this verse, don't we? We love to encourage each other with it, to reassure each other with it. I know I often write it in birthday cards and things. We love that truth that God has plans for each one of us and that those plans are good, and therefore we can have hope. And even though we often quote this verse out of context, as it was spoken to the Israelites in this specific context and about this specific situation, the core truth of this verse is for each of us who are God's people. God's basically saying here that even though the situation is rubbish, even though the Israelites are going to have to remain in Babylon for 70 years, he won't forget about them. He's going to be with them the entire time. He's got plans for them. He hasn't written them off just because they've disobeyed him or denied him. He wants to be with them. He loves them. He wants a relationship with them. And this hope isn't just for the future. It's not just for when he restores them to the land he's given them. It's a hope that's there for them now, for them in the situation that they're in that moment. It's a holy hope. And I believe this core truth also applies to us in the situation we find ourselves in today with COVID-19. And it can fill us with a holy hope in a time that feels oppressive, that feels challenging, restricting in so many different ways. We know that God hasn't caused the coronavirus, and he may not have given us a specific time when it's going to be over or when things are going to go back to normal. But we can still have a hope in the fact that he's with us in this situation. He's got good things for us now, and he can help us to find that hope in this time. And not only that, he can help us to bring that kind of hope to young people too. So as I said, today is Youth Work Sunday, but it could really easily seem like the idea of celebrating and encouraging people to get involved in youth work at this time is a little redundant. Government restrictions can mean that engaging with young people at this time is really, really difficult. Some of them are not interested in online youth groups and programs. Social distancing and all that kind of stuff means it's really, really difficult to engage with them at times. And so for those of us who do have a relationship with young people in some form, either through youth work connections, through family, through our neighbours, through church, or even through our jobs, it can be really hard to know, what does God want of us? How can we support young people at this time? For those of us who believe that it is important to invest in them and to support them, how on earth do we do that? Now, I'm not a prophet, but I think that finding holy hope within this situation is what God is asking of us as his people. Not just for ourselves, but also so we can demonstrate that hope to the young people in our worlds. So instead of wishing this time away, instead of constantly looking to the future and to when it will be over and things will go back to normal, or even just thinking about the fact that it is okay, denying the challenges, denying the realities, pretending that everything is all right, even doing that is really, really not good. I believe God wants us to be people who seek him and what he wants to do both in and through us during this time. Now, I'm very lucky in that I'm an introvert. And so during the lockdown time, I actually really enjoyed myself. I mostly loved it. I really enjoyed spending time by myself. I enjoyed going on long walks in the countryside. I loved reading my Bible and praying more because I had lots of time to do so. And I found that the more I did those things, the more I saw them in the light of holy hope. Now, of course, the situation was still really difficult at times, as I'm sure it was for many of you. I really missed physical contact with my family and friends, and not being able to connect with them and meet up with them was really challenging for me. I miss doing face-to-face youth work. I love young people. I've been doing youth work for over 15 years, and so not being able to do that in the same way was really difficult for me. And I also really miss the freedom of being able to go out and about and do whatever I wanted to. I'm really independent. I like to go out, I like to go on adventures, explore new places, and I couldn't do any of that. So it was a challenging time. But the more I focused on God, I started to see all the good things that he'd given me, and that there was so much hope in him, even in that situation. When I was out on my walks, I began to appreciate the beauty of nature so much more, because I could see all the beauty of the trees and the countryside that were near my house. I could hear the birds singing. It was amazing. I absolutely loved it. I began to recognise how many people there are in my life who I have really precious relationships with. I was connecting with friends who I hadn't seen for ages over technology, and that was so powerful for me and so encouraging for me. And I also began to understand in much greater depth just how much God loves me and how many things that he's given me and just how blessed I am. I wasn't in denial about the situation. I wasn't putting my hope that I would get through it in something abstract, in something that didn't have any substance. But as I sought God and put all my hope in him and the fact that he's always with me, that he loves me, that he wants what's best for me, I found that I was able to handle the situation so much better than I thought I would have been able to. And this is what God tells the Israelites to do too in Jeremiah 29. So in verses 5 to 7, he basically tells them to build lives in Babylon and to enjoy those lives. He tells them to build homes, he tells them to build families, to marry, to plant gardens, to just settle down and build a great life in the situation that they're in. And then in verses 12 to 14, he tells them how much he wants a relationship with them, how much that if they seek him, he will listen, he will engage with them, he will be with them. That is what he wants for them. He wants to be with them. He doesn't want them to be constantly wishing the years away. He doesn't want them to be constantly looking forward to when it's all going to be over, when they're going to be out of Babylon. Because if they do that, they're going to miss all that he has for them in the there and then, all that he has for them right there and then. This kind of hope is life-changing. It helps us to not only get through difficult times like what we're going through at the moment, but also to absolutely thrive during those times. And that means that if we're in that space, we can also begin to bring this hope to other people. And when it comes to young people, I absolutely believe that we can bring this kind of hope to them. If we have got the attitude of seeking God within the situation, of finding the good that he's given us in this time, rather than looking forward to when it's going to be better or when it's going to be finished, then we'll be offering young people something that they're not likely to find anywhere else in the world. The false hope of denial, the false hope of wishful thinking will become something that no longer satisfies them, because they will have seen something different, something that's based on substance. They will have observed a way of life that can make a crazy difference to their ability to cope. And it might even bring them into a relationship with God, which I know is what we all want for them, don't we? So I know that this kind of hope is a hope that I want for myself. It's a hope that I want to be living in. I want to be living in the here and now and who God is and what he's said in that space, rather than looking forward to the future and when things might be okay again or might be different. And as I seek God in that space, in this time, I really believe that we can demonstrate this hope to young people too. I believe that one of the ways that we can cultivate this hope, both within ourselves and with young people, is through perseverance. Perseverance in seeking God, continuing to look for him and build relationship with him, and continuing to live the life that he's given us to the fullest. But also perseverance in our relationships with young people. Let's continue to be people who invest in them, who find creative ways to connect with them during this time that is so challenging. Even in the middle of this situation that seems so hopeless, let's be people who bring them hope. Not a hope that's built on something abstract, but a hope that's built on God and built on something with substance. Let's be people who live out holy hope, so that the world can see that the core truth of Jeremiah 29:11 does still apply today.